publishing of the rules and regulations for private land use and management in regard to the minimum and maximum land holdings in Kenya.
The Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, you can move your motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move the motion that aware that the Article 68C1 of the Constitution of Kenya provides for minimum and maximum land holding acreage in respect to the private land, deeply concerned that with the high population, I repeat, with the high population and the demand for the land have resulted in an excessive fragmentation of land into uneconomical units, noting that at the same time, the number of the people own large tracts of land which are not utilized optically, and noting further that recognizant of the fact that the Constitution in the Article 61 sets out the principles of the land policy, which, among other things, require that land in Kenya shall be held, used, and managed in a manner that is equitable, efficient, productive, and sustainable. This House, therefore, resolves that the government enforces the compliance of Article 68C 1 of the Constitution, Section 158 of the Land Act 2012, and that the National Land Policy, Section of Paper number 3 of the year 2009, on the maximum and the minimum land holdings in this country, Kenya, through publishing of the rules and regulations for the private and land use and management in regard to this minimum and maximum land holdings in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it's very critical that we look at this, given, first of all, that we are having population growth. The population growth in this country is going up every other day, nothing is stopping from it. And therefore, we should increase the food productive to avoid famine, as we are now realizing, and anger that we are now experiencing in this country. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, fragmentation of land, that is dividing land into an economic units, small little land, thereby reducing cultivative land. That is, if you have like three children or 3 sons, what have you, you divide a small piece of land, giving the firstborn, secondborn, what have you. That again is you actually interfering with productive land. Therefore, this should stop otherwise, as we are doing now, and I can see this all over the country, particularly in my area, which is supposed to have been a settlement area, Mr. Speaker. People are now dividing land depending on how big the family is. Those who have got 2, 3 wives will divide that productive land. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that that land is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. 20 years to come will be required, will be asked what happened to your generation. And therefore, because of that, again, that observation is very, very important, because otherwise we actually are shooting ourselves in the feet. Some of the families, as you know, and I think you don't have to name names, Mr. Speaker, they are wealthy, they buy a lot of land. Others have acquired that land because of clanism or whatever, or bought a lot of land. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, you'll find somebody has bought a lot of land, and I want to say, I witnessed that in Trans Nzoia. There's also parts of it in, what do you call it, like Kipia. I saw that Kipia. I saw also in Taita Taveta area. Large families, some families buy land, and you look at it, the usage is not as expected, Mr. Speaker. So they buy land, either acquired or whatever, they bought the land. And Mr. Speaker, you'll find that they don't utilize it to what you expect them to do. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we find that it is even necessary, and I'm just thinking about it, I'm thinking aloud, you have, say, 500 acres of land, and you don't use that piece of land. You only use maybe 100 acres, and the other acre is just there, lying fallow, for the animals to graze in, what have you, and it's supposed to have been used as a cultivated area. I've seen that in, for example, in ADC, in Trans Nzoia, and then I've got my colleague here from there will confirm that that land is just sitting there doing nothing. And so you'll find that that kind of person leaves that land idle, and there's nothing he can do. And so therefore we are saying the government should be able to levy that particular land, pay tax on the land that has not been used. That again, I'll leave that to the Ministry of Lands. And so that again is an issue. We have now institutions such as schools and colleges, what have you. We are saying that now, instead of now expanding horizontally, they should now expand vertically, because land that's supposed to be used is now being, they just carry it around and there's nothing. I went to some place and I saw 13 acres of land for the institution, and only 1 acre is used. The rest is just lying fallow. So again, that land should be used to do production. So we have now going up instead of building horizontally, Mr. Speaker, so that it can be able to have land used, even if it means planting vegetables, what have you, even if it means planting beans or potatoes, at least that to be able to help this country. And so we have therefore a lot of problems, and Mr. Speaker, how I came up with this is supposed to be a motion that was supposed to have been in 12th Parliament, but I think it was taken, we didn't have time in 12th Parliament. I had a chance to go to South Africa, Mr. Speaker, and I saw in South Africa what they are doing is that the families live in clusters. They live in clusters and leave the rest of the land. Even if you have 4 or 5 children, you have your area, maybe 2 acres, 1 acre, you build it up there, you stay there with the children, and the rest of it is left for cultivation. And that's what we are doing, because there's now a lot of competition. We're having now famine today. You ask yourself, why do we have famine in Kenya, of all the places? And the land is there. It's because we haven't used the land very well. And therefore, I have come up with this motion so that eventually it may become into a bill, so that can be able to get the government get involved in the whole thing, and to making sure that the land is used productively. And as I said, I just want to repeat myself, those with large tracts of lands, which are just lying fallow, and the Kenyans out there have no food because they don't have land. And that comes to you and me as a Kenyan, as a leader. And therefore, we should use that land for productive purposes other than just lying fallow. And therefore, we want to ask the Ministry of Lands, if this is going to be a bill, we may have to pass it through this Parliament, so that those who are just having land for the sake of it, because they inherited land, or because they bought a lot of land, Mr. Speaker, they should actually be taxed for having the land lying fallow. I want to, because of time, that's what it is, I want therefore to take this opportunity to ask this House to support this motion, because it's very important. Today, we should be able to look at what is happening what will be happening 20 years to come. With those few remarks, I want to ask my colleague, Honorable Robert Pokose, to second. Thank you.
You beg to move first, and then
I beg to move and ask Honorable Dr. to move, to support,
to second.
to second. Thank you.
Proceed, Dr. Bukose.
Thank you, Honorable.